You bought the Clematis. You loved the picture on the little plastic tag, that explosion of purple blooms climbing up a trellis like something out of a cottage garden magazine. You got it home, dug a hole, plopped it in, watered it, and now it's just sitting there. Maybe it threw out a few sad flowers. Maybe it's already crispy and brown. Maybe it just looks like it's thinking about dying, slowly, out of spite. Here's the thing, it's not that you have a black thumb. It's not that clematis are just difficult, like everyone says. Clematis is one of the most misunderstood plants in gardening. Almost everyone gets the same handful of things wrong. Because the advice on the internet is either outdated, oversimplified, or just plain contradictory. And stick around for the last one, because mistake number 5 is the one that kills entire clematis vines in a single afternoon, and almost nobody realizes they're doing it until it's way too late. Let's fix this. Mistake number 1. Planting it like everything else in your garden. Most people dig a hole roughly the size of the root ball. Drop the plant in at the same depth it was in the pot. Backfill, done. That's literally the instruction on every plant tag you've ever read for every other perennial or shrub. It feels right, because that's the rule for basically everything. Tomatoes, roses, hostas, plant at the same depth. Don't bury the crown, you'll be fine. Here's the catch. Clematis is the one plant where that rule is backwards. Clematis is uniquely vulnerable to a fungal disease called clematis wilt, which can travel up the stem and kill the whole top growth overnight. And this is the part nobody explains, clematis has a trick built in. If you bury the lowest set of leaf nodes 2 to 3 inches below soil level, the plant will grow back up buds underground. So if wilt ever takes out the top, the plant just resprouts from below the soil line like nothing happened. So the fix is simple. When you plant, dig your hole deep enough that the top of the root ball sits 2 to 3 inches under the final soil surface. You're not being gentle with it. You're building it an insurance policy. Mistake number 2. Giving it a sunny spot and calling it done. Everyone knows clematis wants full sun. 6 hours a day, bright spot against a fence. That's the classic advice. And it's not wrong. But here's why plants still struggle even in a perfect sunny location. Clematis has this old gardening saying attached to it: head in the sun, feet in the shade. That's not just a cute phrase. It describes an actual physical need. The roots of a clematis are shallow and thin-skinned, almost delicate, like the plant version of someone who burns in 5 minutes at the beach. When that root zone bakes in direct sun all day, the roots literally overheat and dry out faster than the leafy part of the plant can signal that it needs water. The plant looks droopy and stressed, and people assume it's a watering problem, when really it's a root temperature problem. The real fix takes 2 minutes. Shade the base. Plant a low perennial, a small shrub, or even just a flat rock in front of the root zone so the soil there stays cool and shaded, while the vine itself climbs up into full sun above it. Sun on top, shade on the roots, that's the whole secret. Mistake number 3. Skipping the trellis setup until later. This one's so common it's almost universal. You plant the clematis first, then figure you'll add the trellis or support structure once it actually starts growing and needs something to climb. It feels logical. Why build a whole structure for a plant that's basically a twig right now? Here's what's actually happening though. Clematis doesn't climb the way ivy or a vine like wisteria does, by wrapping its whole stem around a support. Clematis climbs using its leaf stems, called petioles, which curl around anything thin enough to grab, think pencil width or thinner. If there's nothing skinny nearby the moment that plant starts reaching, it just flops. And a clematis that flops early in life develops a sprawling, tangled growth habit that it basically keeps for the rest of its years, because those first few weeks set the plant's structural memory. So the fix is, install your trellis, obelisk, or netting before you even plant. Or, at the very same time. And make sure whatever you're using has thin sections, thick lattice, or wide wooden boards won't give the plant anything to actually grab onto. Mistake number 4. Pruning it the same way every year. People either hack their clematis back hard every spring because that's what you do with vines, or they never prune it at all because they're scared of killing it. Both feel like reasonable strategies. Here's the problem nobody tells you. There isn't one pruning rule for clematis, there are 3 completely different pruning groups. And using the wrong one for your specific plant either strips away all of this year's flowers or leaves you with a tangled, flowerless mess. The real mechanism here is about when each type blooms. Some clematis varieties flower only on old wood, meaning last year's stems. If you cut those back hard, you're literally cutting off every flower bud before it opens. Other varieties flower only on new growth from this season, so you actually need to cut them back hard, or they get woody and stop blooming lower down. And some varieties do both, blooming early on old wood, and again later on new growth. The fix is almost embarrassingly simple. Check the tag or look up the variety name, find out which pruning group it's in, group 1, 2, or 3, and prune accordingly. One search, 30 seconds, and you'll never guess wrong again. Mistake number 5. The one I promised you, this is it. This is the mistake that has killed more clematis vines than anything else on this list combined, and it's almost always done with the best intentions. Picture this. You're mulching your garden beds for the season. Being a responsible gardener, piling nice fresh mulch around the base of every plant to lock in moisture. You do the same thing to your clematis. Except clematis stems are shockingly thin and fragile, right at the soil line, almost paper thin compared to the woody stem higher up. When you pile mulch directly against that thin stem, especially damp mulch, you create a moist, warm little pocket right where the plant is most vulnerable to fungal infection. That's the exact entry point clematis wilt uses to get into the plant. So one afternoon of good gardening, mulching right up against the stem can trigger the fungal wilt that takes out the entire vine within days. It's like tucking a wound in a warm, wet bandage and being surprised when it gets infected. The plant doesn't die from weather, or bugs, or bad luck. It dies from care applied in the wrong spot. The fix: mulch everywhere except right against the stem. Leave a small gap, 2 or 3 inches of open soil right around the base, so the stem stays dry and gets airflow. That tiny gap is the difference between a healthy vine for 15 years and a wilted stump by July. So let's run through it. Plant deep, burying those lower leaf nodes so your clematis has backup buds underground if disaster strikes. Shade the roots even in full sun, because the feet need to stay cool while the head stays sunny. Build your trellis before or right when you plant, because clematis grabs onto thin supports early and sets its growth habit fast. Know your pruning group, because cutting the wrong wood at the wrong time either kills this year's flowers or stunts the whole plant. And keep mulch away from the stem, because that one small habit is the single biggest killer of otherwise healthy clematis. None of this is because clematis is fussy or difficult. It's because the plant has a few specific, unusual needs that don't match the generic gardening advice we've all absorbed for every other plant. Now you know the actual rules, not the guessed-at ones. If this helped you figure out what's been going wrong, hit subscribe. This channel is all about the plants everyone gets wrong, for reasons nobody actually explains, one mistake at a time. And tell me in the comments which mistake you were making. I'm willing to bet it's the mulch one. Tell me if I guessed right.